Hey guys, so today I just wanted to share something with you that happened to me 2 years ago to the date that I've never really talked about, but it played a big role in my life and is an important part of my story that I just kept to myself for reasons that I'll share. But I think I'm finally ready to talk about it in hopes that this can be healing for myself and maybe for others who have experienced something similar. And it's gonna be tough for me to get through because this was a traumatic, embarrassing, scary, life-changing thing that happened to me. But I think it's important for understanding a bit of why I do what I do today, and you know, just to give you a little bit more context for who I am.
Scary moment at singer Iggy Azalea's concert. One of her dancers collapses on stage.
Somebody bring a medic up here.
Dancer seen here next to Azalea on stage suffered a seizure during the song Black Widow. You can see her convulsing on stage. After a brief pause, Azalea keeps on going. Eventually, an ambulance drives up on stage to take the dancer away.
So 2 years ago, I booked one of my dream jobs as a dancer, which was to go to Brazil and dance for Iggy Azalea in a really big performance. It was at the Maracanã in Brazil, which is like the largest soccer stadium there, thousands of people. And it's just one of those performances, like, as a dancer that, you know, you're living your dream. Like, you're out there, you're dancing in front of thousands and thousands of people, and that doesn't happen every day. And like, as dancers know, like, when you move to LA and, you know, you pursue this life, you make so many sacrifices and you go through so many hardships, but like those opportunities like that to really like perform like with a big artist and with a big crowd, those are the moments that make all the hard work and sacrifice worth it. So I'll just jump to the night of the performance, or the day of the performance. We didn't get a tech, which sometimes happens. We didn't have a rehearsal with lighting or anything like that. We basically just got to run through the number on the field and then later that night perform it with Iggy. And so when it comes time to do our performance, you know, I'm really excited. We walk out onto the stage and I'm just like looking out into the crowd and seeing all these thousands of people and just feeling like, you know, I'm living my dream, and I'm so excited and I'm so grateful and I'm so proud of myself, you know, to have this opportunity. Mind you, this happened 2 years ago, so I should... So we get on stage and, you know, we get in our beginning formation and the stadium is completely dark, and then the lights come on, and for whatever reason, even though we were in like a really big arena with a really big field, the stage was like so small. Like, it was like the size of like freaking, I don't know, maybe like 10 by 6. Like, it was small for no reason, just in the middle. And the entire front and back of the stage are lined with strobe lights that are facing directly at us, and they're bright enough to light up the entire stadium. So they're extremely powerful, extremely disorienting. And in that moment, it was like I just went from being on such a high to feeling like I had waited for this moment, and just feeling like that I immediately knew that that moment was going to be taken from me, because 11 years prior, when I was 15 years old, I had a seizure that was caused by a strobe light. And the only reason why that happened was because I was in a really small room and we had a really big strobe light, and I had never had a seizure before. I was not epileptic, but after that I went to the doctor and got tests, and they told me that, you know, it's really unlikely that you'll ever have a seizure again. You're not that sensitive to flashing lights, but the situation you were in was really extreme and really intense, and you just need to be a little bit careful and not do that. I mean, I was 15 years old. It happened when I was at cheerleading camp, and we decided to like put a strobe light in like a dorm room, so that's not a typical scenario. Fast forward over the years, like I had been to Coachella, I had been to concerts, I had been around strobe lights, and in any normal setting, like I'll be fine around strobe lights. And it was always in the back of my mind, like a bit of a fear as being a performer, because obviously lighting is part of a show. But in any situation where it's done correctly and it's done safely, I would be safe as well. Like I said, it was such a freak accident that happened to me when I was young that I knew for it to ever happen again, it would have to be really intense. And that moment, it just was that. Like, there's no reason why a stage should be lit that way. And you don't even have to be epileptic to have a seizure in those circumstances. Like, that was really extreme. So anyways, flash forward to my performance. I get on stage, the lights come on, and it was just like my whole motivation for the performance completely shifted. Like, it went from just like, wow, I'm so grateful, I'm so excited, like let's kill this performance, to just like, okay, you have this other challenge, which is stay in control of your brain. And I told myself, just take deep breaths, do not let these lights get the better of you, do not let them get a hold of you. Like, you are in control of your body, you know, you're gonna be fine. Power through, you can do this. Just don't, you know, close your eyes when you can, try not to look directly at them. But they were just like so all-encompassing that I really tried. And probably like the worst part for me was I was having little moments throughout the performance where I was going in and out of consciousness. So like I would like look at the lights wrong and like twitch and like lose my place and look completely lost on stage in front of thousands of people with a big artist. Like, as a dancer, you know how humiliating that is to mess up, and then to have no control over it. Like, it was just horrible. Like, that was the worst part of it, is the parts that where I was like aware and knowing, and just knowing like, wow, I just fucked up in front of everyone. Like, that was a horrible feeling. And even the other dancers, like they said, they got glimpses of me on stage where they're like, it was like we were looking right through you, like you were not there. But then I would like come back and try and stay in control. So I made it through the first 3 songs of our performance just like with a few stumbles, and then by the 3rd song I collapsed and had a complete full-blown seizure on stage with Iggy. And obviously like I don't remember that part, but it was all over the news and the internet, so I got to see it. And you know, I collapsed and had a seizure, and then Iggy looks down, and mind you, like the lights were crazy, so she got a lot of shit for this, but I kind of don't blame her. Like, she looks and sees me down, and she doesn't know what, like, it was probably hard to tell I'm having a seizure because of the lights were going so crazy. And she looks down and she says, someone call a medic, and over the loudspeaker, and you know, the medics come, but she continues her performance, which is what 100% what she should have done. And like, the story that was in the media after that was like, oh, she's such a bad person, her dancer could have died on stage and she just kept singing. But like, she told me later, she's like, I didn't even know, like I thought you might have twisted your ankle. And she was really sweet after. But yeah, she got a lot of shit for it, and I don't think she really deserved that. Anyways, so I go down, I have my seizure, the ambulance comes, and my poor parents, like this performance was broadcasted internationally, so my parents were able to watch from home. So they too went from watching and feeling like so proud of me to seeing me collapse and have a seizure, and then the medics come, and then the camera, the broadcast just ends. So they don't even know, like, if I'm okay after that. And so anyways, the ambulance comes and takes me away, and I don't really remember this, but apparently I kind of gained consciousness while I'm in my stretcher in the ambulance, and I can hear the performance still going. Like, I hear like, I'm so fancy in the background, and one of the dancers, Julie, came with me, and apparently I got up and I was like, are they playing fancy? She was like, yeah. And I'm like, are we supposed to be out there? And she's like, yeah, but you know, it's fine. And I'm like, no, like we gotta get out there. Like, what are we doing? And like, that just goes to tell you, like, the whole like show must go on mentality is so instilled in us, and it's part of the reason why I never talked about this before and kept it to myself, is because like I was just so dedicated to like my career that I didn't even fully like process like the weight of what had just happened to me. Like, even halfway conscious, I'm like trying to get back on stage, which is just like ridiculous, but it's just how we are. So they take me back, and this is where like my memories start. Like, I don't remember that in the ambulance, but that's what Julie told me, so I'll believe her. But when my memory starts to come back is like they take us back in, like, not the locker room, but somewhere backstage in the soccer stadium, and I'm getting checked out by like the nurses. But you don't, when you wake up from a seizure, you don't know what's going on. Like, you don't know, like, oh shit, I just had a seizure, or like I shouldn't be surrounded by ambulance right now. You're just kind of like, you feel fine, so you think everything's fine, and then everything starts to eventually sit in, like, what the hell just happened to me. So, you know, they're asking me like what day it is, my name, all this stuff, and apparently like I'm answering correctly enough for them to release me. But I still had no idea that I had had a seizure or what had even happened. So it wasn't even until I got back to the dressing room, the other dancers are there, everyone I think is just kind of trying to act normal at this point, and it's not registering to me like how I got off the stage. And I'm like, how did I get off the stage? And the other dancers are like, well, you know, they kind of took you off the stage. And I was like, they took me off the stage? And then I was just like, oh my God, like did it happen? Like, did I have a seizure on stage? And they were like, yeah. And I just like broke down and completely lost it, because it all hit me. Like, this was one of the bigger performances of my career, and I had a freaking seizure on stage. Like, and like the fact that this happened to me when I was 15, it was like this fear that was kind of in the back of my brain as being a dancer, but I never thought it would happen, because, you know, the doctor said it probably wouldn't. And I had performed at Ultra, I had done things that were sketchy and been completely fine, and they told me the chances of me ever having a seizure again was so unlikely. So the fact that it happened, and it happened here, in like my parents saw and the world saw, and you know, the dancers I was with and the choreographer, like, I was just like humiliated and scared and sad. And it's like, it's such a vulnerable like thing to happen to you, to like lose conscious, and let alone for that to happen in front of so many people. And yeah, so that was a horrible realization. And then shortly after that, Iggy walked in, and she just came in like, and just came straight towards me and gave me a big hug, and she said she was so sorry and was worried about me. And like, I was apologizing to her, you know, like, I'm so sorry, I can't believe this happened. She's like, girl, do not apologize, like, we were just worried about you and we're glad you're okay, like, that was so scary. So like, for everyone saying that she was like inconsiderate, like, I personally did not have that feeling at all from her. And yeah, so I had told her PR people that I didn't want my name to be attached to this, and solely for the reason of I was worried it was going to ruin my career, and I didn't want people to see me as a liability. and I wanted to be in control of, like, you know, what jobs were gonna be I could go after and which jobs I couldn't. And they, you know, they agreed to keep my name out of the press. She had a press day the whole next day where she obviously had to talk about it. We just happened to have the next day after that we had the day off, so we sightseed and went to the beach, and paparazzi actually took pictures of us on the beach because, you know, that was like the hot story, like, dancer girl has seizure on stage with Iggy and is now at beach, like. And then, yeah, when we got back to the hotel, we saw it was like on the Shade Room, and then eventually it was on TMZ and E! News, and like it was everywhere, and the video was everywhere. So like watching yourself do that is like, it's pretty scarring to even see, to even have like record of that, let alone to see it like go viral. And it was weird for me when I got back to LA, and like people, you know, were like, oh, how was Brazil? And like I didn't know who knew or who didn't know, and I would just be like, it was good, like, and not say anything, which was weird. And I really didn't know how to handle it, and I think like I was just kind of in shock and I didn't know how to process it all, and I just kept it to myself because I didn't know what to say or how I really felt about it, or what it meant for me. Easy, come on, man. He always wants to play, only when I'm filming. And also, like, just health-wise, so when I got back from Brazil, I had some doctor's appointments and got some brain scans and saw some specialists. So this is my EEG. Well, it's not done yet. They're still gluing the wires. What happens on EEG? What are we gonna do?
We're testing for brain function.
Testing for brain function. So they're gonna put on some lights. They're gonna do some crazy things, and I'm gonna be here for like an hour.
Yes.
Here for
20-minute recording, but 20 minutes setup. So
okay.
About an hour.
Okay, cool. So yeah, it's not scary. They're not like stabbing my head. They're just like gently taping or gluing some wires. Boop, boop, boop. Yep, that's it. All right, bye. And they basically said, like, you know, now that you've had another seizure, you're more likely to have more. Like, your brain recognizes that pathway. So if you're ever in an experience around like flashing lights again, you might be more susceptible. So that also was like a wake-up call. And, you know, like, unfortunately, like, say my goal is to dance for Beyonce, and I reach my goal and I get booked, and Beyonce wants to have strobe lights as part of her performance, but I have seizures. Do I think Beyonce is going to change the whole production of her show? Or are they just going to replace probably the dancer that has seizures? Like, sadly, I'm more likely to get the boot. So like, just to avoid putting myself in that situation, like, I just had to be honest with myself and really look at what my options were and what my best case scenario was, and, you know, just kind of go with that. And with time, I've gotten more perspective, and, you know, at the time, like I said, I was worried about my career, and I was worried about like people not wanting to work with me because I had a seizure, and because maybe that was gonna happen again. But then I like finally realized, like, girl, like, if you can have a seizure on stage, like, do you even want this? Like, do you want these opportunities for yourself? Like, think about, like, maybe it's time to like rethink what your dreams are, because what do they really mean? And like, you know, I feel fortunate to have gotten to do the things I have gotten to do as a dancer, and unfortunately, like, just being a dancer, like, not being a choreographer or a teacher, but like solely just being a dancer is a really difficult profession to have, you know, for a long time. So it was like, am I really gonna like give everything to this profession that has a shelf life anyways, but potentially could have something, you know, detrimental to my health long term? Like, it didn't make any sense. So it was like, looking back, I wish I would have just owned that moment and owned that situation and just pivoted immediately. But it takes a lot for somebody to like really see a situation that broadly in the moment, you know? So yeah, with time I slowly started to realize, like, you know, maybe this was a blessing in disguise for me, because it kind of forced me to just self-audit my life and my goals and where I was headed. And like, maybe, you know, just trying to dance on stages, even though it's what I love, like maybe that isn't the only thing I should be focusing on, especially if you know, there's this added risk factor for me. And fortunately, I have another passion, which was makeup, and I had already started working on my makeup career, and this event just kind of led me to focus more on that. You know, makeup is a career where the potential for longevity is more likely than that of a dancer, and thankfully I love it, and so it was exciting for me to pursue that. But I mean, most people probably knew me as a dancer and are like, why is she posting all this makeup stuff now, and like, you know, why isn't she dancing anymore? I think that it's important for dancers to know that it is okay to pivot. Like, I obviously had a life-changing, soul-shaking moment that kind of forced me to pivot, but there's nothing wrong with, you know, having a passion and having a career and then switching to something else or focusing on something else. Like, we're all multifaceted, and like, it's about being honest with yourself and you know, like really putting things into perspective. And I think with the pandemic, like, obviously, not to, you know, be a Debbie Downer, but like, opportunities for dancers are even more limited. So, you know, I'm grateful that I kind of started laying the bricks down for something else when I did, and maybe I wouldn't have worked as hard to do that if I didn't have my seizure. You know, and maybe I would have had to walk away from dance when it's not my choice, and when it's, you know, just there's no options for me. So I think the moral of the story is, don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to own your story, which I was for a long time. So as dancers, I feel like we're just seen as like second, third, just bottom of the totem pole. So you know, even though this crazy traumatic thing happened to me, I was worried about how it reflected on the artist, how it reflected on the choreographer. Thankfully, everybody was kind, and, you know, nobody gave me a hard time about it, but like, I was embarrassed for them, and I was probably more in that space than I was in my own space. And, you know, like, seeing something traumatic that happened to you go viral on the internet, and seeing thousands of people looking at it, talking about it, making memes about it, making jokes about it. Like, luckily I have a sense of humor, and like, I can laugh at it too because I'm okay, but like, that's a really strange feeling. And everybody has something, I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people had something to say about it, and it's like, part of me is like, just wants to be like, LOL, it me, like, that was me, that happened to me, like. And I think that's why it's important for me to just finally talk about it, because even though it happened 2 years ago, I feel like it's kind of this unresolved thing that like, that so many people got to talk about this and share about this, except for the person that it happened to. So yeah, that's my story, and I hope, you know, if you're someone who has seizures and is a dancer, that you don't feel shame around it, you know, like, it's totally normal and fine, but just be honest with yourself, and, you know, what your opportunities are. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, you know, it's impossible to continue a career if you have seizures. Like, one of the other biggest jobs that I ever got happened after that, and that was dancing on a Showtime show called Penny Dreadful, and that was a SAG union job and it was on TV, and like, you know, there's not really going to be strobe lights on a TV show most likely, so that was great. So I don't want this to come off as I have completely closed the door to dance, because I am a dancer, always will be a dancer, and I will always be open to receiving dance opportunities that are right for me. And I tell myself and I tell the universe that all the time. I just had to get real with myself and, you know, lay the foundation down for another career path that could have more longevity for me, knowing what my personal restrictions are. And you know, I don't want people to think that I just like got over dance or just got washed or whatever. Like, I just realized I needed to, like I said, build that foundation towards something else. But I still am and always will be open to the possibilities that dance can bring me. And with that, I will wrap this up. This has obviously been therapeutic for me, and I hope it could be healing to anyone out there that may experience any of these feelings. I don't know, I'm still trying to figure it out, but if anything that I learned on my journey could be helpful to you, then I'm glad I made this video.